Hey everybody, welcome to Gorbachano's little video of Magic Online. Today we are doing Vintage Cube. This is a Phantom Swiss draft, so I don't get anything out of it, unfortunately. If any of you play Magic the Gathering, Vintage Magic Online is a fantastic way to play in your spare time when your friends are around, or no drafts going on at your local store or events. Great way to play. I mean, it's going to cost money just like anything in Magic the Gathering, right? Especially if you want to be competitive. But it is a fantastic way to play games quickly, easily, and enjoyably because, maybe if you have a bit of anxiety, you can't really play with other people. So, as you saw there, I picked Mox Jet first. I looked at the first pack. We'll go back there. And I saw the Mox Jet, which, just to be honest, is a 0 mana artifact that I can play right away. Kind of fixes my mana a little. I do enjoy blue and black as my colors. Probably could have with the Ulamog, but definitely a lot harder to cast an Ulamog from. You got to get the right cards, really. I mean, of course, in this vintage cube, you can channel Fireball somebody, so that makes life really easy. So since I went with the Mox Jet, I'm always concerned with what people are going to be doing to me. I looked at this pack and I said to myself, Sorcerer's Spyglass seems like a great idea. I kind of want to do an artifact theme if I continue with that, so now that I got Mox Jet and Sorcerer's Spyglass, I'm kind of doing the artifact theme. Part of Magic Online, though, is waiting. But, I mean, we've all done drafts. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It is a lot of fun, except if you have people who are very, very thoughtful, which is good. But I'm a very quick person. I make the decision right away. Second guessing, I dislike, just because if I did it on exams in school, I'd usually get it wrong. So, first thought, best thought, right? Not really. I'm not a professional drafter, so if you guys think that I made the wrong decisions, please let me know. Here, I love Rakdos Return Red Black. Dig Through Time was really tempting, but in the end, I ended up going with the Hostage Taker. I like Hostage Taker just as a card in general, just because you're exiling one of their cards. You basically control the battlefield better. It's something that gives you a board state and exiles their card, but this was a tough pack because I did look at Bloodbraid Elf and I did look at Terastodon. Terastodon obviously hard to cast, but when it comes down, it's devastating because not only do you destroy 3 of their permanents, you get a 9/9 trample, and Bloodbraid Elf is just a great card. 4 mana, 3/3 haste, Cascade is just, you just get such advantage of it, and it's kind of why, cards like in Hearthstone where, the portal cards like the Fireland Swirls and stuff were great because you deal 5 damage and you cast a random spell. Of course you deal with the randomness just like in Bloodbraid Elf, but it is kind of fun. This one I was definitely really tempted for the Winter Orb when I first saw it. Gush also would have been really good too. But I knew that I had 2 artifacts and a Hostage Taker, so there we go. I had my artifact team. I was going to try and get Tezzeret each game and use that to my advantage. Unfortunately, a bit later on, you'll see there was a Tezzeret the Seeker I should have just picked right away. I don't remember what else was in that pack, but it would have definitely made my deck a lot better. Razaketh, when you're not playing creatures, not great. Necropotence, I was like, yeah, why not? I want to get to that Tezzeret right away, so Necropotence it is. I have the Mox Jet to fix my mana, and I was already going for a blue-black theme, so the first few cards I feel in drafts kind of decides what your colors are going to be, unless you get a card that just completely throws your strategy the other way. You want to stick with something. Although some people hate draft where they take the best cards just so other people don't have it, makes life harder for them, but that's part of the game, is making sure that people don't have it. Don't have something that'll kill you, unless you're playing unhinged or unstable. Sorry. Here I looked at another removal spell, but my heart was already sold on the Sword and Body and Mind. if I went with the artifact route where I just basically got a one creature, Tezzeret, and some swords, you control the battlefield long enough that nobody can really do much for you. I did debate going Grixis with the Thundermaw, but in the end, the sword was definitely the better choice. Moving on to the last few packs here, I think a couple people were either AFKing or just taking their time. You do have a bit more time after the 0 seconds, but I would obviously recommend you make your choice before. You don't want to end up with a random pick from the pack into your main deck or sideboard. It only hurts you, so especially since you're going to be playing 3 rounds of this against somebody random who may possibly even have the same cards as you. It's important to make sure you have the cards you want, not the cards the computer's just going to pick out for you. Move on to the next pick here. So, I think the best choice was Yawgmoth's Will in a deck that's not mine, honestly. Nezumi allows me to control their graveyard a little, and the Tideholder Sculler I liked because I like making sure I know what's going on in their hand, and it was my eventual choice. And also, bonus artifact creature. Toxic Deluge, a bit more removal, was a pretty simple choice. If we go back to that, it was not the Tideholder Sculler, it was... So yeah, the plateau doesn't help me too much, maybe a bit of mana fixing. Dreadbore, I had a bit of red, but Toxic Deluge was just an overall solid card since I can pay the life, and I didn't care too much about life if I have somebody like Relic, Seeker the Way Out, so... Solid choice in the end for me. Getting closer to the end of the pack. This next pack turned out really well for me. Nobody took the Spellskite, which again I can pay life, artifact, cheap spell, a bit of a body that I can even attach swords to. It's actually kind of strong if you do that because you can change the target to it and then it becomes illegal and fizzles the spell. So in the end, solid choice. I could have gone with Fiend Hunter too. A bit of a Banisher Priest kind of effect. Moving on to the next pick here. So I think what I went with here, and the reason I went with what I did, was just a bit of being forced into picking a card, which is fine. When it comes down to being forced into picking a card, you just either go, do I want to face this, or is there a way I can stretch this to make it work? I could have gone with the Core Rogue. Not bad with Shadow. Loots me a little, and it was a low cost, but I also was trying to go with the theme of having one big creature that makes a difference, and Hero the Bladehold was exactly that, so I ended up picking Hero the Bladehold in the end. And finally here we get to the next pack, and it was either Nezumi, Memory Jar, or Baneslayer Angel. All of them I felt would have been great picks, but I went with Nezumi for the low cost, for the flip was useful. I ended up actually getting lucky again here having Linvala, just because Linvala is really strong. Disabling somebody's creature, especially when it was creatures that maybe tap for mana or ramp, because Elves is a popular way to go in this format. It never hurts, right? Especially since it's such a great sideboard card. This is the final pack, and boy, did I get lucky. If you ever get Black Lotus, it is really hard to say there's a better card than Black Lotus figure pack. Demonic Tutor probably would have been great too. Caractus would have been great too. Gets me my white fixing. I could just remove a creature from combat basically by putting it to its owner's hand, which is just super strong. Opposition meh, Fatal Push meh. Tanker actually probably would have been really good, especially if I had gotten that Blightsteel Colossus, but you can't know what's going to come in your packs later, so you can't just hope for that. But I guess it gets you your swords if you really need it, but sometimes I wanted that bit of ramp, especially if I want to cast a quick Kalidas or something turn 2 or turn 1 even. It's hard for an opponent to deal with that. We move on to the next pack here. And again, really solid pack. I felt like this third pack going around was fantastic. Phyrexian Revoker I felt like was a great option, but I also didn't mind the Bitter Blossom just because it is a really good board state to have. Flying creatures that I can equip, flying creatures that can protect my planeswalkers, flying creatures that I can use really any way I want to use them. They basically just help me make sure that I get what I need out of the cards I'm using, and making fodder for something like Kalidas, or it doesn't really help me with the Toxic Deluge, but it probably was the wrong choice in this instance. Maybe go with a Mental Misstep right away, but the 1-mana removal is kind of low from what I've seen so far. I mean, you have Swords to Plowshares and Path in this format, and Lightning Bolts, but it's hit or miss in this instance too. Here, I really wanted to go Dack Fayden. I love the Dack Fayden as a card, but then I'd be going straight Grixis, so I felt like the Underground Sea was definitely the best way to go. Animate Dead was tempting, but then I came to my senses and saw Sensei's Dividing Top and Urborg, and I was like, man, those are two tough picks. I felt like Sensei's would be back and it would come around again, but I didn't want to take that risk. It was just too good. It filters so well. You can just spin it in response, take a look at your top 3, filter them so that you can draw whatever card you need, especially when you have something like Daze available. It's a lot better when you have instants available, period, but I mean, it's also good to just spin it on the end step and make sure that your next card is the card you want. Here, I think I just kind of had to go Vendilion Clique. It's really hard to say no to a Vendilion Clique when you can turn 1 Vendilion Clique with a Black Lotus on their end step. I misplayed it a bit later on, Vendilion Cliquing on my turn, since you want to do it on their draw step to make sure that they don't, that you have more information. Here, honestly, it was I could have gone for Burning Rage, but I wasn't playing many red spells. Banish a Priest is a solid spell, but removal's common. I think in the end I looked at the Spear of Heliod because it's an enchantment artifact, an artifact I can search for, destroys creatures, and makes my Bitter Blossoms a bit stronger. So, it wasn't I think a poor choice in my opinion, but it may have been the weaker choice. Thing in the Ice was my pick out of this one, just because I am playing enough spells and I want that big beater, right? What's a bigger beater than a 7/8 that removes all their creatures? This was the pack that I was so torn. I really should have honestly gone for the Tezzeret. You throw him in and I can search for anything, throw it on the battlefield. I ended up losing out on that opportunity, so my loss there. But the Sword of Light and Shadow basically gives me a couple swords that, if I get them out, it's hard to beat whatever creature I have that equipped to, unless they have their own Diabolic Edict or Sacrifice effect. So that's where those kind of things become useful. Here, Inkthil Leviathan would have been good just because of the artifact, following the theme, but I ended up going with Karakas just because, somebody throws out a Ulamog, I can return that creature. I last pack that might have been a little quick there. We'll go back to it. Sometimes people are pretty quick, which is nice because I like to get my stuff done, but I went with Mental Misstep just because swords can hurt me, Path, Lightning Bolt, things like that, and maybe the Forge Master are doing great, but again, if I had picked Blightsteel Colossus, yeah, fantastic. Take the Forge Master every day. But I didn't pick the Blightsteel. Maybe I should have picked a better endgame win con instead of control. Just go for that big bomb, which is, it's the really popular thing to do in Vintage. Is you want that big bomb. Show and Tell, kind of just the best choice. And this came into my lap really well, the Academy Ruins. I play a lot of artifacts, and tapping 2 to return a Black Lotus to my top of my library and drawing it every turn is really, really powerful, especially if I have Divining Top. That you see there, I was stuck with Stirring Wildwoods, and in the end, I started assembling my deck. And I tend to just put everything in the main deck and then remove from there what I don't want. So you can see here, obviously the Olivia, Boros Charm, Stirring Wildwood, Copperline Gorge are out. Here I was really kind of torn between removing a Braid right away, just because it should have been a sideboard card more. We'll move to the end here. Obviously took out a Braid, Song of the Dryads. Here the Blade Hold, just because if a player is trying to go more wide on me, I can play that, or has a big creature that can be constantly blocking and I don't have things equipped. The Nizume went out right away, just because it didn't fit exactly what I was going for. And Sorcerer's Spyglass, I was tempted to take out right away, but it's always good to have information. And like I said, Linvala is just a great sideboard card. If you don't have anything that you're hurting them with, it's, I mean, a format of 3/4 doesn't pass the vanilla test, which is not the best idea. So really, realistically, when I play drafts, I like to go with 26 spells, creatures, whatever mixture you want to do, and 14 lands. I was playing a bit more artifact heavy, so I really didn't mind going for that kind of mix of 26-14, and I didn't have the highest curve. The highest card cost I had was probably Vidalcan Shackles, and that was just because of what kind of build-up you need to use it to make it effective. I think in the end I probably would take out Vidalcan and put Necropotence back in right away. Toxic Delusion was my sideboard, just because if there's somebody who's going Lingering Souls or Young Pyromancer, that's something I throw in, and maybe a bit of a search method for it. But I feel like there's a few things I missed out on here. Obviously going back would have made a bigger difference, but in the end I feel like solid packs to pick out of, especially with the Black Lotus. And that's why it's a great reason to play Magic Online, guys, is you can play a Black Lotus. I mean, most of us won't be able to ever afford a Black Lotus, so take your chance when you can, and I'll play these rounds a bit later for you and show you what they're like in the next few weeks. Well, anyways, thanks for watching, and have a good night, everybody, and feel free to tell me what you think and tell me how dumb I am in the comments below and what I really should have picked. Thanks.